Hello, Jesse Good here, and today I'm going to be counting down what I feel are the 10 worst LEGO minifigure series. It is all based on my personal opinion, which many of you will not agree with, and that's okay. Everyone has their own opinion. I made a system that I applied to all LEGO minifigure series, where I broke each series down by separating the minifigures with 4 ratings. B for bad, M for mediocre, O for okay or good, and G for great. Using points assigned to each respective rating, I ranked each series to determine the list. You'll see a lot of bias here, since I tend to prefer city-based minifigures and new hairpieces over other things, but that preference doesn't leak into most series. Finally, this list will only go up to LEGO Minifigures Series 17, the most recent series at the time of releasing this video. Alright, enough exposition, let's get into this list. LEGO Minifigures Series 2 is starting off this list. I mean, this one is the only one that is $2 on the whole list, and that price can show in some of the duds. This includes the circus tamer, who has no circus animals to tame and just bland pieces that don't stand out overall, a traffic cop, who also has some bland pieces and an indistinguishable design. Mediocre ones include the witch, who I just wish they did something more with besides the reuse of older witch pieces, the weightlifter, where the only interesting design is the weight pieces, the Pharaoh, especially since the one from Pharaoh's Quest was 1,000 times cooler, and that line began showing up in November 2010, while this series began showing up in October 2010, but then again, the Pharaoh only appeared in the biggest set, so this was a cheaper alternate design. But that's just to name a few of the mediocre ones. With this list, you'll see more of a focus on the bad ones and the great ones of each series, which can really make or break my ranking, and the mediocre/okay ones don't have too much of an effect. Speaking of great ones, I always loved the original Surfer. I wish they would have left it there with just that one Surfer dude. Then we ended up getting many more, and more lifeguards, which I thought was just an okay figure of this series. Another great one for me is the Spartan Warrior, whose printing just blew my mind back in the day, and I love the metallic gold on the helmet. The same was with the Mariachi, then they remade him twice more. The same was with the Mime, which they sort of redid. Oh well. Anyways, LEGO Minifigures Series 2 is definitely a good series with its ups and downs, and that's something I can say with a lot of the entries on this list. It's a little hard to narrow down 10 of the worst, but it's not impossible, and many of you have requested it. So let's go on to the next. LEGO Minifigures Series 5 came out fall 2011, the time I was getting back into LEGO after a year break. I always called this one a weak series in retrospect without taking a closer look back at it, but now that I have, it isn't as bad as I remember. Alright, I mean, you can see there's 4 I think are bad, but then 4 that I actually love. Oh, didn't know I loved that much about this series. Anyways, for those bad ones, it's no mystery I wouldn't like the 3rd snow sports archetype in a span of 4 series. I remember pulling a lot of this guy too, because this was the last series where I didn't know how to feel up the packs. The fitness instructor was a way too similar to the Series 2 Pop Star, using much of the same colors and even the same hairpiece. The Cave Woman was a gender swap of a figure that didn't interest me in Series 1 too much, and much like that Series 1 figure, the hairpiece is way too ridiculous. I didn't get much joy from it. This is one figure where I can't really find any part of her useful or interesting. And then there's the Royal Guard. I guess this one is so niche I don't like it, but then again, I thought the Constable of Series 11 was mediocre but not bad, and it's the same situation. But the Constable introduced that sweet baton, and I like the hat on him better. For the great minifigures, we have my favorite suit character ever, the Lizard Suit guy. This one blew my mind when it was released back in the day, and I think the tail piece is still incredibly useful and has never been reprinted. The original Gladiator was great with that sweet metallic gold helmet, and then they redid him but omitted the best part, the helmet. Yeah, we'll get to that one later. The Graduate was such a unique design, it was hard not to love it, plus it came with a very useful degree in sweater print, and the Boxer was great when he came out, and I still see the bruised face is still useful to this day. That figure was mind-blowing for me because he didn't have the regular LEGO minifigure hands. Sure, we've seen this done many times after with fins and gloves, but back then it was a new concept as far as I can tell, and I love how it looked. Some mediocre choices were the Zookeeper, who had the blandest figure but a sweet new monkey mold, or the Ice Fisher with a decent Eskimo parka whose appeal is lower due to there being a Fisher 2 series before, and some of the pretty good ones include the Gangster, which I have no idea how LEGO got away with the body bag that they just called a violin case, and the Woodcutter, who provided an interesting archetype, nice new axe mold, cool hat, and a sweet flannel. LEGO Minifigures Series 12 was released in October 2014 to coincide with the release of LEGO Minifigures Online. It was also the first non-licensed series to retail for $4 in the United States. This made a lot of people judge the series harder from the start. And while there were a nice amount of good and great minifigures, the criticism is justified. Clunkers really weigh it down. For the bad apples, there was the third and unfortunately not last rocker, who didn't feel interesting compared to the distinct style of the last two. I mean, his hair would have been a lot cooler if he didn't have the printed silver parts, because then it would be exclusive. Wait. It wouldn't be, because the hairpiece came out in 2012 with the Rock Band accessory pack, which is $50 friggin' secondhand. What the heck? Sorry, I tried to erase that set from my memory. Then there's a boring swashbuckler, which I remember a lot of people agreeing that he was one of the worst of the series because nothing really stands out from him. He's just a recolor to Series 4 Musketeer, which I think was a much better archetype to choose to capture this kind of character. Colors on that figure are more interesting as well. You didn't see blue on too many historical CMFs. And the Dino Hunter also has uninteresting pieces, even if that's a new archetype. Her new hair mold is okay, as is her new dual molded arms, but it's just a bland figure because, you know, the coolest parts of LEGO Dino lines are the dinosaurs, and this figure obviously can't come with a LEGO dinosaur. It was a bad choice. Then there was a gender-swapped lifeguard. Being a lifeguard isn't the most popular career. One was enough, and since this was a series before summer 2015, the bathing suit once again has a bare backside. This was acceptable for a $2 figure, but not a $4 figure. They didn't even bother to change the little boogie board color from red. Come on, I mean, I can't hide it, some of my favorite collectible minifigures ever are in this series. The Wizard, the Pizza Guy, the Gamer, and the Jester are also great to me. The rest range from mediocre, like the Genie and Spooky Girl, or good, like the Piggy Guy and Battle Goddess. LEGO Minifigures Series 16 is the 7th worst LEGO Minifigures series to me, and I almost feel it's one of the most underhyped series in general. It just sort of came and went, squished between two major series with the Disney and Batman movie series. Either way, what's so bad about the actual content of the series? Let's take a look at the three stinkers. First is a Kickboxer, a gender swap of the Series 5 Boxer, and I think she may be one of the weakest gender swaps yet. They use the same color outfit of the wide release Series 5 Boxer. You know, they could have easily reused the blue color scheme of the very rare Team GB Boxer, or maybe a new color like black, which is usually used with modern kickboxing, but nope, they just went with red again. Weak! The kickboxing aspect isn't very differentiating between the Series 5 Boxer and this one, except for a decent shoe print. Whatever, the best part for me was the new colored 2008 ponytail piece, but even that wasn't enough to save this minifigure for me. Next bad figure of the series is the Desert Warrior. No new molds, and you know, this guy was called the Arabian Knight in the preliminary list, and Atlanta was a much cooler figure to fit that title, and he came out the series before. To give credit where credit is due, there are 4 great figures in the series. The Babysitter was a fresh idea that gave us lots of new colors and prints for civilian minifigures, as well as an easy way to get the much hyped baby figure. The Spy was a nice callback to Alpha Team, and had that sweet new hair piece that is useful for many different characters. The cute little devil was my favorite costume figure of 2016, with useful colors, 2 new molds, and a nice Halloween theming. Look, I love the Halloween design, so that's some favoritism showing through. Alas, the dog show judge not only introduced a useful new hairpiece, but also a new dog breed with the Scottish Terrier. For the other figures, most were just pretty mediocre, which is what I think of the Banana Guy. I mean, he's the best of the food costumes, but that is not saying much. You know, for once, it's a food character based on a part that does exist in LEGO at the time. I mean, it isn't designed to look like a LEGO banana, as those don't have a black top or bottom, but it's close enough. But what just ends up killing the piece for me is the unnecessary print on the banana. Like, if you didn't know what the costume was, they put an annoying sticker design with banana printed on it. Is that necessary? However, there is use outside the banana outfit with the dual molded regular green arms and the face print that has multicolored sunglasses. I like it. Other mediocrities include the 3rd Sombrero Man, 3rd Pirate, and a gender swap Spooky Boy, to name a few. LEGO Minifigures The LEGO Movie Series was one I was iffy about from the start. Honestly though, I think I've liked it a little more with time, but I still think it deserves the title of the 6th worst LEGO Minifigure series. Particularly the worst comes with the robots. Each have like one interesting piece and then a very similar face to each other, and the Super Secret Police, which were the goons of the LEGO movie sets and end up making all of them pretty interchangeable. The designs for each aren't enough to make the figures stand out on their own either. Not even a new hairpiece can save 2 of them. When compared to all the other wacky figures in the series, couldn't they have thought of a better idea than including 3 robots? I don't know. The only other bad figure to me is Marsha the Mermaid, who would have been a bit more interesting if they didn't release a mermaid collectible minifigure a year before that, and a merman collectible figure half a year before that. Sure, she has new colors, but stuff like her would-be awesome blue hair is ruined with the inclusion of a starfish and seaweed print on there. Really limits the use. For the great figures of the series, I always liked Hard Hat Emmett, as the hard hat design for Emmett was prominent in the start of the movie and a lot of the marketing, and was a cool piece with its hair and hat combination, which only come later in one huge set. The accessory is fun as well, getting LEGO instructions as a printed piece. I like when they make a main character in a LEGO minifigure series but bring a unique design to it. I mean, sure, the torso and legs are the same in most sets, but the hard hat really separated him from the rest. I also loved Larry the Barista. We never had a LEGO coffee shop worker before then, plus this new hair piece was super useful along with a new coffee cup piece. And finally, Abe Lincoln was an awesome figure. This was probably the first and last time we'd ever get a US president as a LEGO minifigure, and I'm glad they chose an instantly recognizable one. Some of the mediocre ones include Wild West Wild Style, whom fails on the reasons Hard Hat Emmett succeeds, lacking any new molds or interesting accessories, and it was a design not really seen much in the movie. Same goes with President Business, where yeah, you get a cheap way to acquire the main villain, but he may be a little bit too similar to the one in the set, save for an angrier and tussled shirt. The accessory is just an Octon cup too. It ends up feeling like a poor choice. For the pretty good figures, I like the Panda Suit guy fine, especially since he's one of the few animal suits figures to include an accessory, and Scribble Face Bad Cop would be bland like the Wild Style and President Business of the series if it wasn't for the freaky scribbled face and awesome iPhone-like print. This was an interesting attempt for a LEGO minifigure series based on a single movie, and it wouldn't be the last. I like to think LEGO learned from their faults in this series and improved upon them with the LEGO Batman movie series. LEGO Minifigures Series 17 takes the 5th spot, and it tied with the LEGO Movie Series in points. I'll say this one is worse because it was priced $1 more, but I guess you can interchange the two spots. You'll see this concept reappear in a later entry on this list, but LEGO Minifigures Series 17 had to do something to spice things up because the figure selection is very weak. So they added the Highwayman mystery minifigure. I mean, now that the dust has settled, he's a pretty mediocre figure. Another Western design with no new molds. However, he isn't the worst of the series. Those spots are taken up by a second weightlifter CMF, who uses a pretty useless new mold with a one-piece barbell, a third surfer, which is a figure nobody asked for. I mean, did anyone want a second surfer? They didn't even add a new hairpiece or an interesting face. There's just an okay surfboard design, but this summer is like the summer of LEGO beach sets, which come with many surfboards. It's the wrong time to release another collectible minifigure surfer. There's a second wacky collectible minifigure instructor, and this time instead it's a dance instructor, which looks like the fitness instructor, who looked like the pop star from Series 2. Ugh. Also, another Gladiator. This one is coming 6 years later and is a complete downgrade. The only good part of the whole figure is the fin hair and brown. And unpopular opinion alert, the Corn on the Cob guy is definitely a bad figure for me. He perfectly captures the problem with the food cost in minifigures for me. The main piece is so specific and LEGO just sells them on the big costume piece and not much else. No new accessories or other molds, not even any printing on the t-shirt, legs, or anything. I mean, yeah, they don't need printing underneath, but I like when LEGO goes above and beyond. For mediocre figures, some include the Connoisseur, where you get a great new pug, but the rest of the design is like an update of the Mime, one of my favorite figures of Series 2. Unlike the Gladiator, they redo the printing here as an improvement, but still, it just feels like a weak choice overall. Anyways, I'm glad they're sticking to one unlicensed series a year because the last two non-themed entries make it seem like they're running out of ideas. I've always said LEGO Minifigures Series 10 was a weak series, and that is not factoring in Mr. Gold, who was the 17th figure of this series with a limited 5,000 production run that ended up ticking off many collectors. I mean, I guess this was a good way to spice up a series much like Series 17 because many of the figures here are bad. The third minifigure from the Native American culture is just a boring reuse of pre-existing pieces, even with the use of the Tomahawk piece, just released a month prior in the Lone Ranger line. At the time, I'd say Komochi Camp gives a more interesting look at the Native American culture than this Tomahawk warrior. The mechanic is just boring, with the only interesting part for me being the tattoo on the right arm. I mean, the sunglasses guy with a beard design was tackled many times before, and the accessory being the extremely common black wrench and the hat being the common older style bandana just adds to the blandness. Then there was the warrior woman. I love how they couldn't even assign this to any historical warrior design, they just gender swapped the archetype as a whole. No new pieces here, it's just another spear and shield warrior. I do like that hairpiece in black though. The skydiver was one that was undesirable for many. I remember people would always end up with a skydiver trying to get Mr. Gold. He was extremely common and just an odd archetype they took a standard approach with. Really the only part I like from him is the backpack. The series did have two of my favorite CMFs ever, the Trendsetter and the Old Man. The Trendsetter was a weird civilian design that I feel will never appear in LEGO City sets. She's too contemporary, and I think the idea was translated well onto her clothes and overall look. She has the first civilian girl face with sunglasses, and the new hair piece was incredible. The new Chihuahua mold was cute too, and the printed cell phone looked great. Again, a very modern concept, but other than that, the rest of the series was just filled with mediocre to decent figures, nothing too exciting in my eyes. This one sort of came out of nowhere when I was calculating each series. Series 13 is a flunk though, with a -3 rating using my calculations. For some reason, LEGO never provided a decent quality version of the front main picture for this series. Either way, looking back, there was a lot of failures in the series. Like, you already made an incredible wizard in Series 12 with new molds, incredible printing and all. Why release this far inferior evil one with no new pieces and much more drab printing? I mean, it's neat to reference Flash Gordon, but still. Most of the failures come in the form of gender swaps of previous collectible minifigures. From the Disco Diva, as if the disco guy from Series 2 wasn't niche enough, to the female samurai, a gender swap of one of the weakest Series 3 characters, and worse for last, the female Cyclops. My gosh, this is the laziest, most useless collectible minifigure I've ever seen. I don't think anyone asked for a companion to the Series 9 Cyclops, and any usability is ruined by the lipstick on the figure. Like LEGO, I know you love putting lipstick on most female figures, but does a friggin' Cyclops need to have some? And for some reason she's wearing a tube top showing off her belly, just an overall useless figure. I do think the face print underneath is adorable with the eyelashes and smile, and I wish in general that was a printing on the mask piece. It would look a lot more subtle and natural to fit with the fantasy situation. Though even for someone like me who isn't exactly a fantasy guy, two of my favorites are fantasy archetypes. We have a king who is definitely in my top picks for non-licensed collectible minifigures, and a great looking goblin whose hat piece was later used for the first LEGO Green Goblin minifigure in years. And of course, the cute paleontologist is a fresh CMF design that is also one of my top CMF picks. So I'll give credit where credit is due, but still, as a whole, LEGO Minifigures Series 13 is filled with major missteps of uncreative and bland designs that sink the series. In my opinion, the second worst LEGO minifigure series is LEGO Minifigures Team GB, which was released only in the United Kingdom to coincide with the 2012 London Olympic Games. It is actually tied in its point rating with the number 1 choice, but I gave it a leg up from that one because this one has less minifigures, and while I'd say that is a bad thing, they're pretty limited on choices they can do. I'm glad they didn't do like different swimmers for the 4 different aquatic sports from the 2012 Olympics. It would get redundant. Actually, that's a word to describe this series, redundant. We had a swimmer and a tennis player in the series before this, Series 7. We had a karate master in Series 2 that is a lot like the judo master, a weightlifter in Series 2 as well, and a boxer in Series 5. But the best part of the series are the exclusive recolored cast of pieces. The Superman hair on the Archer in that orange color is incredible, since that hair piece never gets recolored. I actually adore the blue boxer, and people seem to agree with me because he goes for $30+. Crazy. But the blue looks even better than the red design from Series 5. What's funny is one of the original figures of the series, the horseback rider, is my least favorite. I think she's incredibly boring with no horse included and just a reuse of a rubber LEGO Friends hair hat combo. LEGO Minifigures Series 3 comes in as the worst LEGO Minifigures series in my eyes. I mean, this has always been my least favorite series. Like some other series, there's 4 bad figures, and I think there's some of my least favorite collectible minifigures ever. Another snowboarder immediately after the last series, a recolor of Squidman who already had a recolor in 2010, another Native American type figure after the boring Series 1 figure. Then there was the Samurai, which seemed weak with his watered down and neutral colors compared to the Oriental warrior figures of Ninjago, which came out the same time of this series. At least they gave the Mummy a little bit of a distinguishable look compared to the Pharaoh Quest ones. The only great figures of this series are the Rapper and Hula Girl, which funny enough were both reprinted and slightly redesigned in the case of the Rapper in separate sets. Actually, a lot of the figures in this series were reprinted. There was this weird VIP set that they released a year later of the top 5 minifigures, and you know it was just LEGO trying to get rid of old stock because they were all from the series. I doubt kids really thought the Mummy and Fisherman were interesting enough to warrant a reprint. Not only that, but this was the first series to raise the price to $3, and to me, the printing quality still seems like something from the $2 Series 1 and Series 2. There's a lot of mediocre ones here, whether it be the Fisherman, which did introduce a new beard piece to the world, but the overall design wasn't very interesting in general without the fishing boat included, which isn't possible, or the Aviator, whom I can say had the same problem with the Fisherman. Some nice new prints, but just a boring design without, say, a plane included, which obviously can't be done. Some of the okay ones include the first costume character, the gorilla, or the elf, in which both had some nice prints and interesting new molds over their heads. But this series just fails to stand out with a lot of mediocre and bad designs. And with all of that considered, that's why I think LEGO Minifigures Series 3 is the worst LEGO Minifigures series to date. Do you guys agree? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways, that's it for now. I'll see you guys later. Peace out.